JoJo's Bizarre Adventure follows the multiple stories of different JoJos and their Jo Bros as they go on, well, bizarre adventures. Created by Hirohiko Araki, there are 9 different mainline series or parts of JJBA that have been serialized. Now, one of the most unique things about this series as a whole is that you don't necessarily have to start from part 1. You can actually just watch from any part. Now, does it kind of help with the overarching story to start from part 1? Kind of, but overall, each of the different parts are different stories with their own version of JoJo. Well, not version, but with a unique JoJo and their set of Jo Bros. And, you know, some of the characters do return in future parts, but most of the time, the stories are not about those returning characters. Except for part 4. Well, Isaac, you've been sucking Araki's dick so much for the introduction to this video, so then what would you say is the best part then? Well, Isaac Alternate Skin 2, I would say that each of the parts have their own goods and bads, but in my personal opinion, the best part and my favorite part is gonna be part 7, Steel Ball Run. Isaac, I really think you should get out more, man. Why? I'm talking to you. Anyways, yes, I may be basic in saying that, you know, part 7, Steel Ball Run is my favorite JoJo part, but I genuinely do think that it's the best written one in all of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And a lot of people typically like this part in general, mainly because, well, spoilers, yeah, it's a soft reboot for the entire series. But I also love it for entirely different reasons, so before I glaze the shit out of this part, spoiler warnings I guess for this part and also some of the other parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now, all JoJo fans know that part 7 is set in a new universe created by the effects of Pucci and his stand, Made in Heaven. Because of this, we basically get a new beginning of the Joestar bloodline with Johnny Joestar, who is this universe's version of Jonathan Joestar. I'll quickly summarize what happens in part 7 with a single sentence. A cripple and an Italian man race across America riding on horses in order to fight the United States president using the powers of Jesus Christ. Makes sense, right? Now that the summary's out of the way though...
actually that is...
Zawardo! Okay, I'll stop the shitty skits. But yeah, the first thing I really loved about Steel Ball Run was that it gave us a Joestar who wasn't super OP. Starting from part 3, Stardust Crusaders, is where we are introduced to stand abilities. A stand is essentially a spiritual manifestation of its user, with each stand having unique abilities. Well, except fucking Dio and Jotaro. Stands have 2 main rules. Only stand users can see other stands and, you know, touch other stands I guess. Also, stands can affect non-stand users. And stand users are oddly attracted to one another, which means that they will eventually meet other stand users. Now, in my opinion, every JoJo protagonist had a somewhat ridiculously OP stand before part 7. Jotaro's Star Platinum can stop time for up to 5 seconds, and we all know 5 seconds in anime is like half an episode. Hell, the Dressrosa arc in One Piece happened in less than 24 hours. Josuke's Crazy Diamond allows him to revert/restore anything back to its original state. So if someone gets shot, he can essentially heal them by restoring their bodies back to normal. Giorno's Gold Experience can give life to anything. If that living thing is attacked, all damage is reflected back onto the attacker. Not to mention, Giorno can heal people by creating organs to replace damaged ones. And he can also kinda resurrect the dead, but they're like imitations of the person they used to be. I mean, less OP than the other stands, but still pretty OP. He then eventually gets Gold Experience Requiem, which essentially does a Control Z on all attacks done against Giorno and all things in general. So if you get killed by Giorno, you still die, but it's undoed and then you die over and over again. Now for Jolene, I give a bit of an exception. Stone Free is not really an OP stand to me unless you make the fucking Mobius strip. But yeah, the ability to turn your body into string is meh to me, even though it's really cool as an ability in other anime, especially with all the anime characters that use string as a weapon. Now, the reason why I give an exception is because part 6, Stone Ocean, is where Araki starts leaning to more creative ways to defeat enemy stands. Many of the stands in part 6 weren't insanely OP, such as Foo Fighters, who eventually does become an ally, and Marilyn Manson. Instead of having to use brute force, these kinds of stands require Jolene and the Johos, cause they're women, right? I'm sorry, please don't cancel me. To think of unique and creative ways to defeat each enemy. Like with the case of Jailhouse Lock, Jolene was essentially stuck in prison since the stand's ability only allows for its victims to memorize 3 new pieces of information. Since Jolene was constantly trying to remember what to do, she was slowly losing her mind until she realized that to beat the stand, she simply needed something to remind her that the user, Miyu Miyu, was the enemy. Now, I can't go too much into detail, but I will just say it was a really creative way to defeat Miyu Miyu, and it didn't have to do with like insane godlike abilities or anything like that. I mean, yes, there was like an Oda Oda section, but still like there was no like godlike abilities. Now we can finally move on to how this relates to part 7. In part 7, Johnny gets his stand Tusk after getting in contact with Jesus' left arm. Tusk, like Echoes, is a stand with multiple stages, and obviously Act 1 is the first stage. Act 1 allows Johnny to fire his finger and toenails like bullets. However, this doesn't mean he necessarily has infinite ammo since he still needs to regrow the nails that he fired. After his first battle, Gyro decides to teach Johnny more about the phenomenon known as spin. Spin is kind of self-explanatory, but not really, I guess. Yes, spin involves rotating an object to make it, well, spin, but it also involves the golden rectangle, which is an actual mathematical concept in which there is an infinite spiral within a rectangle. That's like the furthest I can really explain it, to be honest. How JoJo's uses this, I will explain later. But yeah, Johnny doesn't get an OP stand initially. In fact, most of his early battles require the assistance of Gyro using and showing him the power of spin. As the adventure progresses, we get to see Johnny understand how to use spin and grow his power through training and learning. This is what also drew me into this part. As some of my viewers know, I am a fan of anime like Dragon Ball Z and Full Metal Alchemist, and the things that are common is how we see the main protagonist get stronger / smarter as the series progresses. Now, I will note that this is more prevalent in FMA. But yeah, Tusk doesn't really seem to be insanely OP until Act 3. Act 2 just kinda gives him a small power boost, but in exchange that buff is only applied to his fingernails. Act 3 is the start of how OP Johnny's stand gets by utilizing essentially wormholes created by spin. Johnny can persona himself and suck himself or just his body parts into these holes, allowing them to travel long distances. Now this is more OP since Johnny can't walk, but hey, he can travel through fucking space. Act 4 is when he finally understands the full power of the golden ratio, in which he's able to attack with infinite energy. The wormholes can now track targets, and when they're sucked into the holes, they're attacked with infinite energy that can literally bypass all forms of physics. The only caveat is that Act 4 is extremely hard to pull off since it requires Johnny to be on his horse and it has to be in its natural state of galloping. Only then will Act 4 manifest, which kinda puts a pretty hard limitation on the stand. Johnny's kinda like Koichi from part 4, we get to see how each characters grow over time. Do they end up being more powerful? Yes, but I think seeing the growth not through just their stands, but their characters is what made this part so much more appealing to me than the rest. Johnny also initially started off as the complete opposite of Jonathan. While Jonathan embodies the persona of a noble gentleman, Johnny before his accident was the 19th century version of a fuckboy who always did things for himself. Throughout his journey, he becomes a more righteous man through his interactions with Gyro and other future Joe Bros. I also found it pretty nice that the whole journey was mainly just Johnny and Gyro instead of a group of like 5 or 6 people. It kinda makes the characters a lot closer than they did in other parts. While yes, Gyro initially acted like a mentor to Johnny, it felt more like a, hey listen bro, I'ma be real with you kind of vibe, you know? At first, Gyro was pretty annoyed by Johnny, but they develop a deep bond throughout their journey across America. Like, only dudes would tell each other that mosquito bites make him horny. Like, if you don't talk about that kind of shit to your bros, like, are you really bros? But yeah, I absolutely loved the chemistry between these two, and it was a really deep bond that you wouldn't really see in other JoJo parts after part 2. Another great thing about part 7 was the villain. Hilarious Cupid, funny Valentine. With this villain, Araki starts stepping away from his little time shenanigans and starts working with other concepts for power sets. Dio could stop time with Kira could rewind time with Diavolo could erase / skip time with and Pucci could accelerate time with Valentine's stand, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, or D4C for short, allows him to travel to parallel worlds as long as he is between two surfaces. If he drags other people into this dimension, the two versions of those people instantly draw towards each other like a Patara fusion, and destroy themselves down to a molecular level. Near the end of the part, he finally receives the blessing of Jesus and unlocks D4C, Love Train, which upgrades his stand's ability to now also produce beams of light that not only he can go to other dimensions in between, but also redirects all attacks away from him since he has only good luck. This is by far one of the most creative final boss stands I've seen, besides Part 8's boss, Wonder of You, or as they say in Japanese, Wonder of You. The fact that such an OP stand was produced and it required literally Johnny to combine all the lessons he's learned to beat it made these two stand out as a whole. If we move away from just the final boss, Part 7 didn't really have OP supernatural abilities in general. It was more mind-fucking than actually like explosively dangerous. One of my favorite examples was the stand Mandum. While yes, the stand had a time-based ability, it wasn't as OP as like, say, stopping time. Mandum's ability allows the user to rewind time by 6 seconds, and it makes it as though nothing happened during those 6 seconds, essentially trapping its victims in a time loop. It's not insanely OP since the user Ringo would still have to use his own strength, like shooting a gun or something, to kill his victims. His stand is also limited by the placebo that he could rewind time if he rewound his watch back exactly 6 seconds. After realizing this, Johnny fires a nail bullet at him to paralyze his left side, thus putting an end to his ability. The fights throughout Part 7 are more about logic and creativity more than just spraying people with rapid punches. Overall, I believe that Steel Ball Run is a masterpiece that is filled with stunning visuals and some of the most fleshed out character development I have ever seen in all of JoJo's. The fights are more creative and focused less on the raw power of stand abilities. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but Funny Valentine's main goal is to, make sure that America stands at the top of the world, and that's why he's searching for the corpse parts of Jesus Christ so that he can receive the blessing of Jesus Christ. And this doesn't necessarily make him a bad guy, I would say, because as any leader would, they want what's best for their country, and so gathering the corpse parts to do so is not necessarily a bad idea, but I guess him killing people, yeah, that's the bad part, I guess. I mean, hey man, JoJo says that Jesus Christ approves of America's message, make America the greatest again. But yeah, anyways, I really love the story overall and its emphasis on character development. If we look at the other JoJo parts, each character, each JoJo I guess actually more specifically, has a very clear-cut personality. We know that they're good people-ish, and then at the end, or by the end of the series, we know that they're gooder boys and girls. But Johnny starting off as an asshole is a huge flip from the regular JoJo formula, which I appreciated a lot. But yeah, if you guys have your own favorite parts though, let me know in the comments below. My top 3 so far have been Steel Ball Run, Golden Wind, and Battle Tendency. Well, Battle Tendency because it's pretty trolly, Joseph is a troll. But yeah, if you guys also have things to say about my opinions on Steel Ball Run, be sure to write down in the comments below. And if you guys have things to say about your favorite parts, again, comment section down below. But yeah, if you guys also like this video and if you guys want to see more of my content or you guys want to come back, drop a like, hit that sub button, and yeah, that's all I got for today. Peace.